Awesome. It's a little
Jens.
slower on my end. Good
No,
morning or lunchtime almost. How are you doing?
it's lunchtime. Good. We're swapping internet connectivity issues today. You're sitting in Germany and having a few connection issues, and clearly swap places in South Africa.
Yeah, I hope I will not drop today.
Yeah, well, it's awesome to be back for another recording around reverse mentorship and building this prototype art that's becoming Reverse Mentorship Fridays with our flat caps.
Yeah, and the responses from last time was positive. Not too many as usual when you start something, but that's how we're used to the prototyping style and learning from it and then reposting it on other platforms. So for everyone listening, again, if you see this live, comment, ask us anything around reverse mentorship. Put hashtag live. If you see this on the recording, put hashtag recording and ask us question. We happy to answer more questions. You can as well reach out to us on any of the different social media platforms or on the website, which is the xyzplayground.com. So Joshua, what are we going to do today?
Good question. So I think in sort of the true nature of Reverse Mentorship Fridays is we like to come up with a question to explore and to deep dive on. So the question that we've picked up today to explore is, what is reverse mentorship? And I think, last week we chatted about applied entrepreneurship, and we spoke about the mindset that we can engage in with an entrepreneurial mindset in mind. And now we really bring it back to our roots. And Jens and I are both passionate about reverse mentorship. And so to kick things off, Jens, why don't you tell us about why is reverse mentorship of value to experienced thinkers?
Yeah, let's go this way, and then afterwards we go into more depths of what we see reverse mentorship can be and is for us. So if you're an experienced thinker, and experienced thinkers, for those who have never interacted with us, are people who are having already a little bit of seniority in their way of thinking, a little bit seniority in their job, in their profile, and understanding of the world, but also understanding of the industry of different professions and so on. So if you're an experienced thinker, you might understand a mentorship relation, which is normally you as the experienced person are mentoring a young person or unexperienced person. For us, the opportunity in swapping this around, where we say, hey, what if we do a reverse mentorship perspective where the young person is mentoring the experienced person? The opportunity for you as the experienced person is you will get completely different opportunities in thought processes, in the ways of how young people think. Because I mean, just thinking about myself, if you have been in an organization for quite some time, it's often that you're not too close to all the young thinkers inside your business, but as well from an external perspective, not too close to a lot of young thinkers. I mean, I'm now 40. I feel young, but I'm still far away from 20-year-old people. If we just take this example, it's 20 years gap between young thinkers and myself already, or a bit more than 10 years between the two of us. So it's the opportunities I see for us as experienced thinkers is getting a completely different worldview, getting an understanding of who are the future customers of my businesses, but as well where is the future purchasing power going. If we just think about the business aspects, you're selling whatever you're selling services, you're selling products. They're all towards people. They're all towards people who are interested in buying them or using the services and so on. So all the young thinkers who are 20, let's say between 20 and 30 right now, will be future customers if they're not already are customers of your business. So if you know how they think, if you know how they work, it will be easier for you to adapt your services and products towards their needs, dreams, and desires, like we always talk about. So it's really, for me, number one is getting the experience, getting the understanding of what they're thinking, learning from them, and in the same way, and that's where I will bring the question back to you, in the same way as giving your knowledge, because I think the wealth of knowledge I have gained over the last like 40 years, it's highly valuable for you as well, because I might have done, or I'm pretty sure I've done a lot of mistakes, which I can tell you shouldn't be doing. But on the other hand, I also know which mistakes you should be doing, because that's the biggest opportunity you learn. So how do you think, Joshua, on a young thinker perspective, why is it interesting to look into reverse mentorship as an opportunity for young thinkers?
Before answering that question, Jens, I just want to double click on one thing that you mentioned, is that you spoke briefly about the needs, dreams, and desires of customers, and in terms of future customers. And I think that's hugely important for experienced thinkers and businesses to be thinking about. However, something that's come up quite a lot in some of our recent discussions and engagements that we've had with other people inside of our network is around the retention of top talent inside of your organization. And I think that, it's one thing to think about your customers, but also think quite consciously about how are you enabling and enacting with young thinkers, younger generations inside of your own business. Because I think something that maybe COVID and the last couple of months have alerted us to is that things are changing. Top talent are looking for environments and workplaces where they are seeking identity from and with, and it's no longer just a job for a lot of them, because they're actually wanting to distill and engage with some of the values. So I think that, yes, it's important to understand the needs, streams, and desires of future customers, but also treat your employees and the very team that you're working with as customers, and also try and interact and understand with them at a different level. So that's something that I'm sure we'll explore in later conversations. But to come back to your question around how can young thinkers learn from reverse mentorship? So there's sort of a few points that I just want to expand on here. So the first is around being given the space to grow. And I think inside of a young thinker's headspace and opportunity is that we're not always given that space to grow. And what I mean by that is it's a remarkable thing when an executive or an experienced thinker, in this case, decides to actively engage with the young thinker. And I think that that's a big thing, is where young thinkers can really learn a lot by being given that space. The other element is around being challenged. I think sometimes, young thinkers come in and they just complete the task right in front of them. But I think that as a young thinker, your value and what you can learn from reverse mentorship is to have your thinking challenged. And I've used an example before in a previous podcast that Jens and I have done, is around the naivety that a young thinker can bring into certain situations. And you might hear that word and you think, yes, young people are naive. They don't have 40 years or 25 years of business experience. And yes, that is true. But think about how, as a young thinker, you can learn by being challenged on the way that you're thinking about things. The last two elements really talk to you around your mind. And there's a quote that I'm going to just use here quickly. So the one thing that I think as young thinkers is that we really about being busy, is we think that busy means productive, but it actually doesn't. And if you think about working through your mind, what I'm trying to say here is that you can't increase the speed of your decision making, but you can increase the quality of it. And that's a quote from Shane Parrish, and I highly recommend checking out his blog, Farnham Street, to learn more about mental models and things. But inside of this reverse mental model is, I think that, Jens, and it links back to a question and a point that you raised around the transfer of knowledge and lessons from an experienced perspective. And I think the experienced thinkers definitely will gain from engaging with younger thinkers. But as we like to say, is mentorship is bi-directional. And I think that by just taking the time to engage with an experienced thinker, young thinkers will be amazed by the amount that they can learn if they truly open up and sort of make themselves vulnerable to being challenged, to failing, to falling down, but also to providing that feedback at a level that maybe they haven't had the opportunity to do before. And then lastly, to end off is, so from an overall perspective, I think that young thinkers are at quite an interesting transition phase in terms of where we see is, if you look at the shifts around the world at the moment, is talent can now be acquired from anywhere inside of this digital remote information economy, whichever term that we want to use to describe it. And I think my challenge for young thinkers when you start thinking about reverse mentorship is, there's a quote from Mahatma Gandhi where he says, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world." And if you think about young thinkers, you now have an opportunity to go and engage with experienced thinkers. And actively, that requires you as an individual taking a step up and acknowledging that chance that you have, or that opportunity that experienced thinkers are giving us. So, Jens, it's a long answer, and I've put down a lot of things inside of that. But as you can see, sort of Jens and I are both quite passionate about reverse mentorship, and we really do believe that it can unlock some serious value inside of your business and inside of you as an individual.
Yeah. Love that. I want to double click on the topics of learning again. So we talked about this as well in podcasts and other topics we do. The generational learning is an interesting perspective, because of course it's an opportunity from a business perspective, and for me there's no doubt on it. If you do this, if you just start engaging between different generations inside a business or with your customers, the business will flourish just because you get different perspectives and you get different ways of thinking. But what we should not forget is the personal level. I mean, if we just delete the business relationships you and I have together, on a personal level, we learn so much from each other. Being in different circles, and I always use the way of thinking, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. And it's so true, and most probably a lot of people that have young kids understand that. So if you're in school, if you're, let's say, in the wrong group as a kid, you go into one direction. If you're in another group, you go into another direction. So it's the hood you live in. It's all these topics. And I think from a reverse mentorship perspective, it's a huge opportunity for you as a young thinker to learn and have the personal experience with someone who is 10, 15, 20, sometimes even 30 or 40 years ahead of you, just to pick their brains and understand how did they live their life, what has changed over time in their way of thinking. And that enables you as a young thinker to really accelerate your personal growth. And on the other hand, if we turn this around, is if you're, let's say, if you're 60, or we have had someone in the call who is 64, he's learning and absorbing from the young thinkers. From like yesterday in the space, it was with you, where it's and I think between you is like more than 30 years. And it's yes, it's on a business level, but it's also from a personal level. It's like, holy crap, how can this young dude have this interesting perspective? And I've never thought about this. Which I think is just a fascinating way of looking at the reverse mentorship opportunity. It's not just business, and yes, I'm all over business, but it's also personal and deep rooted into how do you learn from a value perspective and so on.
So I really love where you went with that, Jens. And I was, as you were mentioning that example from yesterday, one of the things that popped into my head was the opportunity that we have in this digital age, in this information economy, to learn from the experience of others. And I think sometimes when we think about learning, is that we think about learning in sort of it's almost like a super structured way. So we go to school, we go to university or varsity, depending on which part of the world you live in. Then what happens after that? And you don't stop learning. Your learning rate is continuously driving forward. And that's just going back to what I mentioned earlier, is inside of this reverse mentor model, it also, the experienced thinkers have the opportunity to engage with young thinkers and different generations. And I love the way that you framed cross-generational learning, but it requires young thinkers to also take that step up.
Yeah.
And to actively and intentionally put yourself in situations where you're having the opportunity to engage with experienced thinkers. And I think that's sometimes challenging. And yes, it's not always, it doesn't come easy or naturally to everyone. But I think that young thinkers, if you're listening and you're out there, actively take a step to put yourself in situations where you are engaging with what we call experienced thinkers. So think about it, someone who's older than you or might have more experience than you in a specific field, because you'll be amazed by the amount that you can learn in a short space of time if you do just that.
Yeah, and it's quite funny that you said that. It's really taking the first step. I'm extremely active in this kind of things, and that's one of the reasons I've been successful in my career. Is you get in contact with someone, or you're not, and it's kind of, you see someone who is super interesting, you admire, or you think like, holy crap, I can learn a lot. Reaching out is like this first step. I literally did it last week with a slightly different level towards Tony Robbins and people on that level, which for me is a different planet. But people are happy to interact. I was discussing it. Was it yesterday? No, it was the day before, on a podcast with a retail executive who is he has worked with the biggest brands and has been CEO of the biggest brands from a fashion industry perspective, and as well he was in Apple and so on. And he was saying exactly the same. It's like literally doing the first step, reaching out. Um, Everyone puts people who have been very successful in business or very accomplished in like sport or whatever on kind of a podest. It's like, hey, these are the stars and I'm nobody. But they're just normal humans. They're happy to interact with people and happy to learn in the same way like the two of us. And I think that's a little bit when you come from the formal learning perspective, going back to that, like you grow up in school and maybe university, whatever that is, you feel like you're so far away from them. But all of us have started in that way. Everyone who is maybe famous today have been nobody as part of their life, and they're still feeling that they're kind of nobody. Most of them, at least, they're feeling that they're just a normal person if you're not completely crazy. And you would love to interact. So I was in the podcast, I was giving the example with Nija, who is now part of the Reverse Mentor team from the XYZ Playground. He reached out to me and said, hey, I would love to do an internship with you. And I wasn't able to offer him this, but I kind of dragged him into this opportunity. So this would never have happened if he wouldn't do the first step and reaching out to me. So it's highly recommend everyone who is young and everyone who as well experienced, like reach out to the other side and do the first step.
Yeah, and I think that that's sort of a great sort of note to draw this live session to sort of some sort of conclusion and sort of close it off and wrap it up. And going back to the question that we posed right at the start is around what is reverse mentorship? And I think, we've answered that question in a multitude of ways. We've answered it from an experienced thinker's perspective, from a young thinker's perspective, but we've also showed that it's multi-layered, it's multi-dimensional. And I think that's one of the things is around when you think of something as complex, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's complicated. And that links back to quite, in my mind at least, quite clearly around this notion of just start. Is I think that we can come up with a multitude of reasons why we mustn't start or why you mustn't make that first call to engage cross-generationally, but actually just take that first step. And I think that inside of these sessions and inside of the conversation that we're building out around reverse mentorship more broadly is that we are going to pull on some of those threads and also explore some different and untraditional thinking, because that's where, and one of the things that we've both learned from prototyping.
Yeah. So everyone who is watching this on Facebook or on YouTube later on or on any of the other media, check out the Reverse Mental Lab podcast, where we most probably put this in as well as a new way of thinking. There are a lot of interviews we do in this style where we engage with experienced thinkers and or young thinkers. And in case you're interested to be part of that, if you want to get interviewed from us and on the podcast, you're happy to welcome to reach out to us. Of course, you should be heading to the xyzplayground.com, where we give you a little bit more perspective of what reverse mentorship is, how you can engage with us, how you can be part of, as a young thinker, mentoring experienced thinkers, and the other way around in the same way. And a little thing which is even not out yet, we will be starting a daily blog from Monday on, which puts the both of us a little bit under pressure, because what we said is we will be writing a book about these topics, and we do this in a completely different way than other people do. So we start publicly writing that book, and it will be part of a blog and a learning experiment. So that will be also on xyzplayground.com, and we haven't agreed in saying that already today. I just need to have the pressure in writing because I'm crap in writing. So happy to get feedback from all of you going forward. Joshua, any last words from your side?
No, all good. I just want to throw in a quick chirp is maybe one of the reasons why you need the pressure is because at heart you're a triathlete, and I know that you guys can perform well under pressure, and you need that little bit of pressure to drive the performance and the training side of things. So I'm looking forward to the journey ahead, and Jens, some real gems that you shared today, and it's exciting to see where we take this live discussion going forward, and maybe we throw in a few other thinkers into it in time to come.
Yeah. Thanks, Joshua, for the time. Was fun exercise again, fun test. Let's see where it takes us. So everyone watching this, next Friday will be the next version around 11 o'clock live. We most probably need to set up as well a reminder for people. which we didn't so far. So thanks, Joshua, and see you again next Friday.